Good evening, everyone, all the way from Azusa, California. Today, I want to talk about the topic of why I choose to live a restrictive life. So, of all the choices and opportunities available to me, why would you possibly choose to go to Thailand, live as a Buddhist monk, and need to follow all these rules? And for me, I wanted to answer this question. First, we need to go to the basics and answer the question of, do Buddhist monks live a restrictive life? And the answer is yes. For Thai Theravada Buddhist monks, we follow 227 precepts. So that's 227 rules, many rules. Some of them include eating 2 meals a day. So lunchtime is our last meal. For us is we're not able to work. We don't practice killing, so we can't go fishing and hunting. For us, other rules include us wearing robes, so we don't wear the traditional clothing. Another rule that we follow is that we practice celibacy, so we don't have romantic relationships and we're not pursuing that track. But many different rules, the list goes on and on, that we need to follow. Then people would look at us sometimes and they feel bad for us. And they're like, wow, Venerable Nick, you have so many rules, you live such a restrictive life, and you don't have the freedom to do all the things that we get to do. You can't drive, you can't go on long driving trips cross country, you can't go to the nightclub, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't go shopping, you can't eat dinner. And again, then people feel like that is so restrictive. Again, we don't have the freedom to do these things. But for us on our end, it's the opposite. And opposite meaning for us is by having so many rules, it actually gives us freedom from. So for us, we are limited in our choices. Why this is a freedom is because sometimes having too many choices can be a problem and it can be an issue. And we get to travel so many places around the world, meeting with many people. One of the things that they struggle with is this opportunity of having so many choices. The fact that you have to pick can make us exhausted. It can make us fatigued and actually cause us more suffering by having too many choices. So for me, I wanted to give you 2 simple examples. The first one is regarding eating. So for a Buddhist monk, like I said, we eat 2 meals a day. The relationship with the lay people for monks is quite different. So for us is we don't have a traditional job. I don't go work 9 to 5. I don't get a salary. And from that, for us is all of our basic needs, our food, our shelter, our medicine, and our clothing is being supported by the lay community. So then for us, because all of the material things are supported, then we have an opportunity to train ourselves in the spiritual world fully. And then from that, we gain wisdom. We take the things that we learn and then we support the lay people with spiritual wisdom, with spiritual knowledge. So this is a symbiotic relationship. And from that, one of the things is then we rely on the lay people for our food. We go on alms offering in the morning. The lay people will offer this to us in the bowls, or sometimes they'll come to the temple and offer the food. With this is then we don't get to pick our food because whatever is offered by the lay people with generosity and with faith, for us we eat. And we eat for the sole purpose of sustaining our body to live for one more day so we can continue to train ourselves, continue to do more good. And this in the beginning for me was challenging because back in my lay life, I ate 6 times a day. And from having the freedom to cook, the freedom of making dinner, and I can make all the recipes. One of the downsides to that we don't talk about is that took up so much bandwidth. I remember spending so much energy. How many of you can relate to this? Just thinking of, what am I gonna cook for breakfast tomorrow? What am I gonna cook for lunch in the next hour? What am I gonna cook for dinner? Then I would go to the grocery store in my late life, and I would remember walking around with a shopping cart, then trying to figure out, okay, what is the meal again that I want to eat? What am I sick of? What do I want to eat more of? And again, this would consume so much time. So while we have the freedom to pick the food, but also it can take up so much of that mental energy. So for us now, living as a Buddhist monk, having these rules and not having the choice of what we can eat, not eating after noontime, not picking the food and requesting so much of what we want to eat, while one of the things that come up is we don't have that choice, but the positive side is now I don't have to worry. Whatever is simply given to us, we just eat and we just appreciate that. And it might not be understood fully, but from my perspective is there's a beauty to that. And there is a freedom to that where now that freed up so many hours, that freed up so much bandwidth of having to choose and figure out. So that's the first thing with food. The second example I wanted to share with you is just with clothing. Oh, I love clothes. Before becoming a monk, shopping was my thing. I want to look good. I like to dress up because I would work as a dancer. I would have my professional life. I would go to the beach, but shopping was a thing and a way to express ourselves. But the downside of that also is then I didn't know what to wear. I would always have to figure out of what season is it? What color is it? And for me, I wasn't so good with fashion. I didn't have the taste that other people had. So for me, then I would need to spend more time to put my looks together, to research it, to go search for it, to purchase it, to coordinate it. But that in itself, the same thing, the way that I would spend so much time figuring out what am I gonna eat. Now, on top of that, I'm figuring out what am I gonna wear. And on top of figuring out what I'm gonna wear is how do I even accessorize it? What is the color scheme? So the list just goes on and on and on. And for Buddhist monks is we have 2 sets of robes. That's it. When we are going about our day, we wear this. When we go to funerals, this is what we wear. When we do important ceremonies, again, this is what we wear. And now the freedom of that is I don't have to think. I don't have to think of what am I gonna wear tomorrow. I already know this. And that alone saves so much time, again, saves so much energy and that mental bandwidth. And the reason why I'm sharing this with all of you is because one, hopefully you can take the wisdom and apply it to your life. And again, our lives are different, but use it in the capacity that it makes sense for your life. And how do you use it is to see where there may be areas in your life, it's too loose, it's too free. And from too much freedom, then it's pulling so much of your energy. So how we solve that is put some constraints, put some restrictions on that. And one way to do that is develop a routine or a habit. Pick a time when you're gonna wake up. Pick the time that you're gonna eat. Pick these different things and put constraints on it. And we see with the top CEOs, and I think of like a Steve Jobs, who then they wear the same thing, a black shirt and genes. Why? And why they do this, again, is so they can limit their number of decisions. Then from this limiting the number of decisions, then they get to put their time into things that are most important. And for us as Buddhist monks, then where we put our time and energy is into our meditation practice, into time to slow down, to be with ourselves, to contemplate and reflect. We do our chanting and meditation, but this is the most important things for us. So then with that, just test it out and see what is your middle way, and to see if you even notice this difference. But from my perspective, again, is these rules and restrictions, while they can be seen as a bad thing that limits you, for us, then we see that as it gives you the freedom from so many choices. And for those who are now starting to implement these rules or guardrails for your life, a side note that I would want to add is that in the beginning, it's challenging. So these uncomfortable feelings may come up for you. The same way for me of switching from eating 6 times a day and having that freedom to now just eating 2 times. Oh, that was not easy. It was very uncomfortable. I was so hungry in the beginning. It took me maybe about a week or 2 to adjust, but your body will adapt. And now, many years in the monastery, it's not even a big deal. And from these rules and restriction, like I said, now so much more free time, so much more peace of mind from needing to worry, to pick and to choose. But this, then coming back to answer the original question, is why I choose to live such a restrictive life. The boundaries, the guardrails, it gives me a peace of mind, and I don't have to make so many choices. But hope this is helpful and is relatable to your life. But as always, I wanted to send you blessings all the way from the monastery. Hope you all are doing well, and take care, everyone. Satu.